Welcome to the Providence College Podcast. Subscribe to the show on iTunes, SoundCloud, Stitcher, and Google Play. If you like what you hear, please review and share with others. Email podcast@providence.edu with questions or comments. Go Friars.
Hello and welcome to the Providence College Podcast. I'm your host, Matt Chittum, and I'm joined, as always, by PC producer and videographer Chris Judge, class of 05. Here at the Providence College Podcast, it's our job to bring you interesting stories from inside the Friar family. And today we are fortunate to have two Friars on the podcast. We have Sam Lopes, the head women's soccer coach here at PC, and Bridget Hillsman, the graduate assistant coach here at Providence College. Thank you for joining us. This is fantastic.
Thanks for having us.
And this is actually Bridget's first day.
Yeah.
We got to make sure we get you early.
Starting off running.
There you go. So do a quick bios for both of you. Bridget, you just graduated this past spring, but before coming to Providence College, you were at Fenwick High School in Chicago. Also another home of the Friars. We get a lot of Fenwick grads coming to PC. You were a 4-year member of the women's soccer team here at Providence College. And you have a very interesting story to tell, and we'll definitely dive into that. Sam, 2002 Quinnipiac grad.
Yep.
Right? And then you were at St. Joseph's College as assistant coach right after you graduated with the Southern Connecticut State. Coached there for 6 years before coming to PC as assistant coach for 2 years. Then got your first head coaching job at UNH. There for a year, then we brought you back. You're only gone for a year, and we brought you back here to Friartown. You've been here ever since kind of 2014 onward. So, again, thank you for doing this, and we're catching you in the summer. So today is July 6th, 6-7 short weeks away from your first game. So what does it look like right now as you prepare for next season?
Well, we're like every other team in the country, we're undefeated and feeling really good. So I think, for the most part, all the players are on their own island, so to speak, just kind of putting in the work to prepare themselves for when they return back to camp August 1st. And as a staff, we're just doing a lot of the prep work with the travel, the training sessions, game preparation, roster management, all the administrative, logistic type of stuff. But it tends to go really quick, and August 1st will be here before we know it.
And that's first day of practice?
That's the first day that we're allowed to report, but that will be what we call an administrative day. So we'll take care of a lot of the meetings that we have to have on campus with, whether it's medicals, media, compliance. Typically, Bob Driscoll will come meet with the team, and we're officially allowed to get on the field on August 2nd.
Got it. Now, just walking around Slavin today, you can see a lot of student athletes are already here on campus. I'm assuming a lot of them are freshmen. Do you have any athletes of yours here?
We have a few that are taking some classes with the summer session, but for the majority, they're still back home on their own training and preparing for the season.
Got it. And now you've had your 3-year run here at PC has gone well. You have over a 500 record. Things have progressed pretty well. And at the same time, while the season has gone well, kind of the postseason stuff has been pretty exciting as well. I saw Kristen Shea was nominated for NCAA Women of the Year award recently. So what is that exactly, and how did she get in position to get that accolade?
Yeah, we've done really well in the first 3 seasons, and I think the players deserve a lot of the credit. Just embracing a new voice, a new way of doing things. At the end of the day, I'm not scoring goals or making saves, so they deserve all of the credit. Kristen Shea is just a prime example of what I want our program to represent. She just grew year after year, was just an extraordinary example in terms of how to excel on the field, but also in the classroom. And the nomination is just a reflection of that. We don't know where that will go, but just to be nominated for her efforts as an elite student athlete at the Division I level speaks volumes about her journey here. So do you nominate her, or is that something that Bob Driscoll, as the athletic director, does, or what's the process for that? Yeah, actually, Jill LaPointe was the one that had mentioned it to me, that she was getting nominated for it. And she's the senior associate athletic director here at PC? Jill LaPointe, yeah. So, and now it's just, there's a long list of kids that have been nominated, and we'll see if she's able to, earn that award. Right. And then in addition to Kristen, who obviously has a wonderful chance of getting that award, and just being nominated, as you said, is a big deal. You also have Shelby Hogan,
who, with the under 18 national team. Speak about that and how kind of the playing outside of the college environment, or just specifically the Providence College environment, can help a student athlete as they prepare for, say, the next season or just their growth in general. Yeah, I mean, Shelby obviously comes in with a lot of youth experience at the national level, the youth national level for the USA. And I think probably the best that could have happened to her was having someone like a Kristen Shea to learn from. I think people see just when Kristen Shea's performing during games and, she has the all-time shutout record. But I think what Shelby probably learned a lot from her is what goes into it, getting in early for training, staying late. So Shelby's got all the talent, and I think this year is probably going to help her grow even more, just having a mentor and a leader. Like I said earlier, an extraordinary example in Kristen Shea. But I have high hopes for Shelby Hogan, but she's got some big shoes to fill because Kristen Shea obviously had such a rewarding career. Right. And when you came in, 3 or 4 years ago, you came into a roster that was pretty good, just evidenced by just the stats last year. You had 17 of the 28 goals that were scored by seniors. So when you come into a roster that has, some good players on it, you want to ingratiate yourself with that roster, and it's not a rebuilding situation per se. It's just a matter of, trying to get the most out of the players and continue to grow. How do you strike that balance? And then I'd love to follow up with you too, Bridget, to hear it from a player's perspective. Well, it's you go into a new season and it's the same. You're trying to learn about the growth that an individual's had from a season to the next. There's going to be people stepping into different roles that they didn't have in the previous year. You're trying to establish an identity within that team under the confines of what we want our program to represent. So if you just look at last year when we had Rachel Uglick and Catherine Hiller, they were our two leading goal scorers, but they weren't that the year before that. So you hope that the development program you have in place from when the season ends up until the next season, you're helping players evolve and grow as players, but also becoming a bit more confident and embracing their new role. So I wouldn't be surprised at all if it's another 2 or 3 individuals that maybe didn't score a lot last year that will probably score a lot this year. That better happen or they're not going to win a lot of games. So, certainly we hope that happens, because if that doesn't, we could be in somewhat of a trouble this year. I can imagine you obviously want to score more than what if you get no more goals, you have 11 on the season. So with that said, when you were here, Bridget, and Coach Lopes comes in, did you know him from recruiting while he was here as an assistant coach, or what was it like trying to get to know him as a new figure leading the team?
So it was actually interesting because coming in, I was the only member of my class that had not been recruited when he was here. I was recruited by the assistant coach before him. So coming in, I had no idea who he was. I'd never met him other than the official visit. But even then, nothing crazy. But coming in, I don't know. I think we hit it off pretty well, pretty quickly. I think there was a period of time where I was definitely feeling him out and he was definitely feeling me out as well. Just because I did play such a different role on our team, and I didn't have that background with him. So it was kind of just seeing how it was going to go for the next 3 years, because I was a freshman when he came, the end of my freshman year. But yeah, I mean, it was a pretty easy transition. I think that, we kind of, now we're friends. I mean, I'm working in his office, so I hope we get along well. Yeah, and I just think she I didn't recruit her, but it's been refreshing to have her involved with the program, to be honest with you. And it's kind of the reason why I wanted her involved with the podcast. And I just think she's such a great example for making the most of the hand that you've been dealt and finding a way to influence the growth of the program, or in a different way of saying something that you truly care about, which she cares about this program a lot. And, obviously the fact that
she's going to be sticking around as a graduate assistant even speaks more volumes about the impact she's had on our program and, her commitment to doing things for the greater good of our growth.
Right. And I'd love to get into this, Bridget, because I know we were speaking earlier about the kind of the speaking engagement you had at the what's it called?
The letter winner ceremony?
Yeah, exactly. The varsity letter ceremony. About your unconventional career here at PC as a student athlete. You're coming from Fenwick, which has a strong PC tie to it. Your first varsity year at Fenwick in high school, you lead the team in scoring. You come to a Division I program. You're obviously feeling good about it. And then what happens?
So my senior year of high school, I had 2 concussions right in a row within a month, which led my summer leading up to college on the couch. But eventually I started working out again. So coming into preseason, I was feeling pretty good. I hadn't played soccer in about 3 to 4 months, which was definitely a little intimidating. But come the first scrimmage, I was feeling good and things had been going really well. So I played about 80 minutes of that game. And by the end of the game, I had a horrible headache. Couldn't remember if anything had happened. But was later told by one of my teammates that I went head to head with someone and just didn't really look the same after. So that concussion, if you want to call it that, eventually led to post-concussion syndrome, which I had for almost 3 years. So that kind of impeded my ability to play on the team and kind of transformed my role within the team.
That's something. I'd love to rewind that a little bit, going back to your high school years. So you said you had 2 concussions in a month. And I think that it seems at least that knowledge about concussions and their effects and after effects are kind of always coming to light. I feel like every year that goes by, people who follow sports learn more and more about everything that goes along with concussions. But back then, when you came back so quick, in retrospect, do you feel like that was too quick? Or what was that process like for you at the time and then as you look back on it?
Yeah, at the time, I think it's difficult because as a player, you always want to be, right back in it. You feel like you're missing out and you're falling behind when you're not on the field. So, yeah, looking back, at the time, I was just trying to get back out there. I had a neurologist and I would go to the neurologist. And when he said I could pass all the tests, I was fine with that. Looking back now, it's a little different because I think about, how I was feeling and what I was really thinking. And as well as I was doing and as much as I could pass those tests, there was something that told me that I just was not right. I didn't feel quite like myself, but, when the doctors are telling you that you're fine, I mean, who's going to say you're not? Right.
So what were some of the symptoms that were kind of nagging on you?
So I had a lot of nausea, fatigue, constant headaches, really severe headaches. But, for the first couple concussions, they would subside within, 2 to 3 weeks, kind of typical. But it was really that last concussion at PC that kind of changed the whole game for me.
Now, is it cumulative or was the last concussion just more severe than the others?
It was definitely cumulative. I had 4 total. And I think that just having 3 within about 3 to 4 months really kind of put me back.
So what were some of the post-concussion symptoms that really hampered you freshman year after that scrimmage, like you said, and, kind of moving forward into your following years?
Yeah. So, the symptoms from that concussion were a bit different, just that they were much more severe and they were just constant and nagging and would not go away.
Like what were some of the symptoms?
So I had severe headaches, nausea, fatigue, difficulty focusing, concentrating, remembering things. And all of these eventually led to the first semester of my freshman year, I took a medical leave. So I took that semester off and tried to rest and recover. And then I came back for second semester.
Got it. So after second semester, so obviously the freshman season is done at that point. What was your outlook like for the upcoming season, kind of the postseason workouts that you either do with the team or on your own? What was your mindset like when you came back, say, late January when you started classes?
So It was definitely a little bit different because we didn't have a coach at the time. So we were kind of in this limbo area where I wasn't allowed to practice. I wasn't allowed to lift or anything because I really hadn't progressed like I'd hoped at home. But our entire team was really in this waiting pattern. We were lifting, we were practicing, but we were really just waiting for a new coach for our program from January on until I think it was April.
April.
So, I mean, we were putting in the work, early mornings, getting practice in. But my mindset was really, A, I want to coach, and B, I want to get better so that I can step back on the field. So I was really just trying to get myself healthy again.
Got it. And so when the season starts, so say August 1st of that summer, what was it like for you once practice started? And Coach, when she finished that, what was it like for you? Your first week on the team, week with the team, you're trying to figure everything out. Not your normal season preparations are already hectic enough, but you have like a whole roster you're dealing with. Most of the people on it, but still things change. So how does it work for you when you have someone who's kind of going through what she's going through?
So that summer was probably even more interesting because I came to preseason late that year. I'd had a surgery to try to alleviate my headaches in Cleveland. And so I called Coach up and I said, I think I'm going to be about 2 to 3 weeks late to preseason.
Off to a good start.
And no, he was great about it. So we just kind of checked in every week after I had surgery to see how I was feeling and what we thought the approximate date would be. And I think I showed up 3 weeks after it started. So that whole journey, I mean, I showed up and we were already playing games. So that was a little bit different for me to not be able to see the whole transition with, all the new freshmen and our whole team coming back from the summer. But when I came back, we were doing pretty well. So it was definitely a good change from the previous season because our start had not been quite as strong the previous season. So when we came back for my sophomore year, it was definitely a more positive outlook on the team from the players and for myself.
Yeah, it was, from my perspective, it was challenging just because the way the hiring process went, got the position late in the spring, so didn't really have what is considered an off season, the non-traditional season with the team, where you try to learn a lot about each other and who's where and that type of stuff. So we had preseason, a short window to prepare for the season, as well as really get a feel for each other. There was obviously a lot of excitement just because there's a new coach, a new way of doing things. So I think that helped accelerate the process. So for me, the focus was more about, okay, who are we and how can we make the most of what we have, and just really focus on that. And we just kept it really simple. I thought it was a really good year considering all things, where we qualified for the Big East playoffs for the first time or the second time in like 20 years. And I think that was a huge accomplishment. And, that graduating class of Alyssa Martino, Leah Belize, Allie Walton, who's actually getting married in a couple of months, going to her wedding, Lex Shea. I think those four, it was challenging for them because going into their last year, they didn't even have anyone to kind of lead them and train them and make the most of it. So I give them a lot of credit. And I think that class is a byproduct of what we've been able to do. So their fingerprints are on all this success following it. So it was challenging, but at the same time, there was so much excitement that I didn't really look at it as a challenge, as much more as like, this is an awesome opportunity.
Right. So just going into your so that year and then your following 2 years, how would you describe the balance you had between being a member of the team and just not being able to contribute on the field the way you had imagined? Yeah,
so I think I definitely struggled with it at first because I couldn't really accept the fact that I was never going to play again. And I know that we had a couple of conversations about it. But, eventually I think I had some come to Jesus talks with a couple of people, and it just wasn't going to happen because I wasn't doing well. But, slowly I found my way, and I give the whole coaching staff here a lot of credit for that because they really gave me the opportunity to kind of step up in a way where I felt like I was doing something, rather than just kind of sitting on the sideline. So, gradually I was given some roles to do on game days, and I was more involved in practices, which became something that I really looked forward to every day. And I've become very passionate about, which is why I'm, as a graduate assistant now. But it was definitely a difficult journey trying to figure out how I was going to contribute and give my best to the team when, in the past, my best had always been doing something on the field.
And the way you phrased it is very interesting about how trying to figure out how you are going to make it work within the team. Because I feel like a lot of people in your situation, it wouldn't be a matter of how can I make it work. It's, should I continue to do this? Because being a part of a Division I sports program, whether you're a manager or the best player on the team, is a full-time job in a way. Mm-hmm. I played college sports, and it was always funny. Our coach would always say, you have your athletic life, your academic life, and your social life, and you can choose two. and I feel like at that time you have a situation where, you are in a position where you're not going to play. So why continue to stay involved when there's a lot of other offerings that you could have gone after?
Yeah, that's funny that you bring that up, because that's a conversation that I had a lot at the time with my parents, because they were kind of just like, why are you doing this to yourself? Because for a while, it's hard. You lose something and you're upset about it and you kind of resent it a little bit, but I just couldn't let it go. And so they would ask me, Bridget, why don't you just quit? You can have a social life. You can do whatever you want, finish school. And my perspective on it was kind of like, I've had so much taken away that I love, and no one's going to take something else away from me. Like, I'm going to decide when or if I walk away. But that day came. That day came. We had a coach and I had a conversation about it one morning, because I just wasn't in a real great place. Mentally and just emotionally. And I was still struggling with the not playing part. And, I told him, I was like, I'm skipping class today. I'm flying home. And by the way, I don't think I can do this anymore. So, and he was just kind of like, okay, take the weekend, like take a step back and, think about it. Whatever you want to do, like we can make this work. If you need to not come to everything, or he was kind of just like, you can kind of speak to it, but he kind of just told me, we can make this work and we'll do what we got to do to get you in the best place possible.
Yeah. I just think Bridget's story should be told a lot, because I think in this generation, many athletes spend too much time worrying about how many games they start, how many goals they score, when they should really be looking at the greater picture of what the platform of sports provide. And it could have been easier for Bridget just to simply walk away and do other things, which, by the way, I'm going to steal the whole, you can have 2 out of the 3 going forward with my players.
Let's hope they still choose athletics.
Yeah, no, I hope so. But yeah, that conversation, one of the things I struggle with the most is those kinds of conversations with your players when they walk in and they say something or they ask you something and you're just not sure if you found the right words to kind of help them with whatever they're struggling with, because you can't really put yourself in their position. And I know Bridget was struggling quite a bit. And you got to imagine when during the winter and early spring, we're training at 6 a.m. and if you're not sleeping at night, it's tough, and we've been spending a lot of time talking about the athletic side, but we also have to acknowledge the fact that for 3 years managing with these health conditions and still trying to do something to influence the greater good of the program, she still graduated and did the whole academic side of things too, So, to me, that's why I think so highly of her. But that conversation was not so much about telling her what to do, because it's not part of my philosophy as a coach. I really just challenged them with different scenarios and get them thinking a bit. And hopefully they arrive at a decision that they can look themselves in the mirror and say, this is what's in the best interest of me. And it wasn't good that she was skipping class, and maybe we shouldn't be talking about that on this podcast. But she wasn't in a good place, and she was getting beat up emotionally, mentally, physically. I think there was just a moment where she was just like, can't win type of thing, like, why me type of thing. And I just challenged her to really just get away, think about it. And if you come back and you still feel that's what's in the best interest, I'll support you. But I think there's a lot of good you bring to the program. And I'm glad that she came back and she was able to arrive at a decision that she could continue. And we just tweaked things. We just talked a little bit about putting a schedule together where, maybe you don't come to these training sessions because they're in the morning, but you come to these in the afternoon. And that was a little bit tough for her too, because she looked at it like, even though she's not playing, she looked like she was cheating the team, which again, just speaks a little bit about her. So I'm glad the way it's worked out, because I think she's got so much to offer. And I hope she continues to tell this story, because I think a lot of people can learn a lot of different life lessons from it.
Yeah, I can believe it. And with that in mind, you've brought up a couple of times, so she's been great for the team, the support she's able to bring for her teammates. But obviously you needed a lot of support, I'm assuming, as well during this time. And there must have been some sort of an attraction to, maybe being closer to home or having family support. But at the same time, I'm assuming you also had support here on campus. Yeah, definitely.
I have said from the day that I've kind of told this story that, if I had walked out of that office that day and Coach had told me, okay, it was nice having you, good meeting you, good luck. I would have transferred the next semester, gone home, been closer to my family. But even my parents said, I had such a close group of friends from this team. And even the support that I received within the whole athletic department was greater than I would ever find anywhere else. And so for me to transfer just wouldn't have been the smartest decision. So staying with the team was really the best thing that could have ever happened to me.
And that speaks a lot to the team's culture, Sam. And then I think that's, and that is a byproduct from the top down. And I think I'm looking at you right now, and behind you is a poster on the wall, "We, not me." And I know that's part of your program philosophy, and you have a couple different components to it. The three being we, not me, the process, and maximize today. So I'd love to hear more about this. And first of all, what was the genesis behind kind of setting forth the philosophy and literally spelling it out?
Yeah. Well, the "we, not me" obviously just speaks volumes to being more team orientated. But really what it means is I want the me to try to grow daily into a better version of themselves and embrace and maximize their role for the greater good of the we. And, I want the we to be the superstar. I want the we to get the acknowledgement. It's not about who starts. It's not about who scores. It's not about playing time. It's really about the individual. And when I say the individual, I'm not talking about just players. I'm talking about coaches, support staff, administrators. Everyone has a role in helping Providence women's soccer be successful. And I don't want Bridget to be like Kristen Shea, and I don't want Kristen Shea to be like anybody else. I want them to embrace who they are and challenge themselves every day to be a better version of themselves while trying to help the we really grow. And in saying that, the process and maximize today, it tailors into that. Maximize today primarily because you just don't know what tomorrow brings. And I think too many times, you never know what's going to happen. And Bridget is obviously a prime example of that. She's playing 80 minutes in her first game and things are going well, probably playing really well. Obviously, if she's playing 80 minutes, she's obviously a really talented player. I wasn't there. And then next thing you know, it was the last time she ever put on a shirt. Senior day, we snuck one up on you. And it's just a life lesson. I learned that life lesson at a very young age. And I was one of those people that kind of took for granted the opportunities you had within that given day, and just really trying to instill that in the members within our program. The process is primarily because I know it's a results business type of thing. But the process it's really about the three things you talked about with your former coaches. I want to challenge them every day within the process of becoming a better soccer player, becoming a more invested student in the classroom, but also as a person. And so just the process of how you try to evolve within you in those three areas every single day. That's who we are, and that's who we'll certainly always be as long as I'm fortunate enough to be the leader of this program. It's
interesting how you described we, not me, because I think oftentimes when that gets parroted, whether it's social media or you have some coaches who say some version of that, like there's no I in team, which is funny because there is a me in team. But you hear that, it's almost as if they present it as the individual should be suppressed to help the team. But the way you just described it is basically the opposite. That the me part is vital and needs to be maximized as opposed to suppressed. And by maximizing that individual, that's going to lead to team success.
Yeah, absolutely. I've always said I love being here. Providence College provides me a platform to do what I think's my calling. We joke all the time. I tell my players all the time, I'm not that smart. Like, they correct how I pronounce things, how I speak. Sometimes I'm talking to them and they're giggling and obviously I didn't pronounce a word right. But the platform Providence provides me allows me to work for my true employers, which is my players. When I wake up every day, I'm trying to be the best that I can for them. So even though I want us to be more team orientated, I have a responsibility to the development and the growth of the individual, and how you choose to explain and educate them what that means. Both can be accomplished, because we're going to get judged by the results, right? Whether it's in the classroom, right? Team GPA or team wins. But what makes that work is how you provide an environment to allow them to be successful as a student, as a player, and hopefully they leave 4 or 5 years a young, developed woman ready for whatever the next chapter is.